Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Valsa, and we're back with another tier list using Tier Maker. Today we're doing the Exemplars. And I think you know generally how this works, but here's how we're going to rank them. We're concerned with both the impact of the Exemplar on the artifact. So for example, if you have a really strong artifact and the Exemplar doesn't make it much better, then the Exemplar is going to get a low ranking. And the other thing we're looking at is the viability of the artifact. So if you've got a terrible artifact and the Exemplar makes it a little bit better, it's still going to get a low rating because no one's going to use that artifact. To unlock Exemplars, you need to do at least 2,000 Forge of Light keys. Who does that? Strong whale accounts, right? If you're a free-to-play, low spender, I'm sorry, you're probably just not going to see Exemplars. I don't love that, but it's the system we have. You need to be at least a mid-spender and probably a high-spending whale, if not a kraken, to unlock these Exemplars. And so when we examine the impact of these, we're going to do it through that lens of a mature, strong account and whether or not they'd use that. And we'll start with the Kingslayer. Now what the Kingslayer's Exemplar does is increases the damage factor, that's good, and it also increases the execute effect. Originally the execute effect's 10%, with the Exemplar it goes to 12%, and that means if you use this on a unit that has 12% or fewer units remaining, then it just insta-kills it. This is decent. The damage factor I think is going to see more broad use. Every so often the 10 to 12% increase on the execute will see some impact as well. And Kingslayer's just kind of hanging on there. Obviously this is a cav artifact. There's a lot of other good cav artifacts now, but you know, people 4 or 5 March cavs, and sometimes even strong accounts will still use Kingslayer. So I think we're going to put this on the B tier. Our next artifact is the Golden Crest, and this is the artifact really meant for, you know, Sindri and Fregar. And what the Exemplar effect here does is it increases the amount of normal crit rate you get when you use the Gold Crest. Now in a Sindri and Fregar March, you care about normal attacks, and you care really much about getting that normal attack crit as high as possible. So you'd think this is beyond plan. The issue is it only increases your normal attack crit when you use the artifact, so that's at best every minute 30 seconds. So a 10% increase in normal attack crit for 10 seconds once every minute and a half. Honestly, I'm just not that impressed. I think this is C tier. Alright, next we got the Mirage Orb. So what the Mirage Orb just does naturally is it fires a shot, does a lot of damage, and then sort of fires a secondary shot that's an AoE effect. It hits a bunch of legions near your target. It does some damage, it knocks them up and gives them a little bit of a crowd control for a couple seconds. So what the Exemplar effect does is it increases the radius of that knockback and increases the number of legions you get. Honestly, I'm just not that impressed by that. Like, this is a great example of a great artifact, the Exemplar of which is not that impressive. I think Mirage Orb is great, but I don't know that you really need to Exemplar it. Now you get a little additional, just flat increase from the Exemplar effect as well, so it's not useless, but this is one I'm not too excited about. I also think this is C tier, but I do have it above the Gold Crest. Next we got the Springs of Silence. Now the Springs of Silence are an infantry artifact, but if you're a mature, strong account, are you using the Springs of Silence? I don't think you are. What the Exemplar effect does is it increases the damage factor when this thing goes off, and it also increases the slow duration for units hit by this. But you got to ask yourself how many people are going to be using this Springs of Silence even if they get an Exemplar. I think the answer is close to 0, right? If you have a strong enough account that you've unlocked Exemplars, you're not using Springs of Silence, you're not using this even if you get the Exemplar, so this is trash. Okay, next we got the Thunder Elegy, and what the Thunder Elegy does is it drops like a circle on the ground. It does ticking damage to anyone in the circle. You can't leave the circle for the duration of the circle's up. It's 5 seconds, you can't leave it. And also it can silence anyone who gets hit by the damage. That's pretty strong. What the Exemplar does on top of that, it inflicts units hit by this with a magic defense break. Now defense break's only 12 seconds, but it lasts for 30 seconds. That's super strong. I think this is one of the better Exemplar effects out there. The Thunder Elegy is a pretty decent artifact to begin with. I think this makes it one of the better mage artifacts in the game. I have it at A tier. And honestly, I could see an argument to moving it all the way up to S tier. Next, we got the Spiritborn Torque, right? This is really Gorish Skogul, force enemy legions to attack you. The Exemplar effect increases the range of the taunt and the number of legions taunted. That's pretty good in itself. Now, there's a couple things I want to point out about this Exemplar that make it really good. First, this is one of your meta rally garrison artifacts. And the Exemplar effect gives you additional attack, additional defense. That's just super strong. The other thing that's really kind of interesting with this is, and honestly, like the Tournament of Champions or the Paramount Championship, one of the ways you win that is like by the enemy miscalculating where your Gorish Skorgel taunt's going to go off, right? Now, normally everyone's pretty good at avoiding the Gorish when you're at that level, but the extra range from the Exemplar actually makes it pretty tricky, and you can win matches in Paramount Championship just with this thing. Like that's kind of a niche use, but it is one of the things that makes me push this all the way up to the A tier. Alright, the Rattles Spear, I think this is a good example of making a pretty mediocre artifact a little bit better, right? So what the Rattles Spear normally does is it's going to fire 3 shots off. It takes some time, it's kind of annoying. What the Exemplar does, it kind of fixes that. It condenses it all into a single shot. It also increases the damage, and the Rattles Spear inflicts the slow. This will increase the duration of the slow. All those things are great. The issue is just like how much longer are really using Rattles Spear. It certainly had its day. It's really for Kanara, Kanara Nico, Kanara Hosk, and it was great with them. How much longer do you think you're really using Kanara Nico, Kanara Hosk if you're one of these cracked out accounts? Maybe a little bit longer. I think when we get to the G5 archers, they're probably getting benched more or less permanently. So for now, I'm having it B tier, but I'm going to put it near the bottom of B tier. Okay, next up is the Spring Blades. This is really the artifact designed for Emrys, Emrys Bakshi, something like that. So the Spring Blades, you throw the blades, it does damage when it throws it, and then it kind of hovers, hits anything near where it's hovering, and then at the end of 5 seconds, it comes back to you and hits people coming back. It increases the radius of that hover, so it can easily hit the more legions, and also increases the damage factor of the hover. Right, so your damage factor initially, it's 400. With the Exemplar, it gets up to 550. Okay, you're thinking, okay, a damage factor increases of 150. That's not that great. Well, it's 150 per second for 5 seconds, so really that's a 750 damage factor. And it can also hit up to 3 legions, so if you max this out, that's 2250. I think this is pretty strong. I have it on the A tier, although at the bottom of the A tier. Alright, the Springbird Feather, obviously we all know this one. This just increases your march speed, and when you use it, increases the march speed of your legion and some nearby friendly legions. Kind of an interesting utility artifact. What does the Exemplar do? It adds a buff that reduces damage taken for all the affected legions. Okay, so maybe you're using this in a cav ball, maybe it's on like your infantry march so they can keep up with your cav. You get to a point where you're like, hey, the tide's turned against me, the enemy's onto me, I gotta get out of here. You hit the Springbird Feather to run away, and as you do that, you get a damage reduction buff. Okay, not very exciting. I don't think you want to see this one. It's not useless, but I have it on the C tier. Right, the Phoenix Eye. Now, this is a gold chest artifact, so even free-to-play players can get it. And it's a shame that they can't get this Exemplar, because it's pretty good. What the Exemplar does, it increases the area of effect, actually quite substantially, and also increases the damage factor of Phoenix Eye. This is a strong artifact. Now, there's some other, the new Forge of Light and Mage artifacts are arguably better, but this is still competitive, and I think the Exemplar makes it substantially better. I have it on the B tier. Now, the Shadow Blades, this one makes me sad, right? What does the Exemplar do? It basically gives a second firing of the Shadow Blades. This fires in sort of like a forward column. It is AoE. What the Exemplar does is it gives it a second firing. Now, the first damage factor is 3600. The second firing, the Exemplar firing, is only 500. So 500 more damage factor, that's okay. It's AoE, that's good. What's the issue with this? If you're a strong account, you probably don't use Shadow Blades. And so the people that do use Shadow Blades, it's still a viable artifact if you're free to play, if you're low spend, maybe if you're mid spend. Those players aren't going to see Exemplars. So this would be great for the players that need it, but the players that need it aren't going to get it. I have this on the C tier. Okay, so the Gilded Crossbow, this is your Magzay artifact. When you activate it, it does ticking damage in a circle around you. The one sort of downside about the Gilded Crossbow is it is an archer artifact, but if you're in a season of long-range warfare, it only hits the distance of sort of the normal archer range. So what does the Exemplar effect do? First of all, increases the damage factor. Hey, that's nice. It also increases the march speed. When you hit the Gilded Crossbow, your march, presumably Magzay or something like that, gets additional march speed. I guess the idea is like the enemy's coming towards you, so you hit the Gilded Crossbow and run away, all the while doing damage while you're running away from them. Hey, that's a nice theory, but like what what are you getting chased down by? Most of the time you're getting chased down by Cav, and if Cav is chasing you down, they're charging at you. So your increased march speed, it doesn't matter, because they're still going to run you down. So the march speed thing, I'm just, like, completely unpersuaded by. However, like, this is a strong artifact, increases the damage factor for getting the Exemplar, so this is still B tier. Kind of the same story with the Wolfhowl Horn. Wolfhowl Horn, very strong Cav artifact, AoE damage, inflicts Tremble, a type of crowd control on everything you hit. What does the Exemplar do? Well, it increases the area of effect, and it also gives you additional damage factor. Right, so not transformative, but makes a good artifact slightly better. If you use Wolfhowl Horn, you're happy to see this, because now your Wolfhowl Horn's stronger, but it doesn't really do anything you weren't doing before. That's a B tier to me. Heart of Kamasi, an original gold chest artifact. This is one of those artifacts that saw increased use as time goes on, because this is one of the few archer artifacts that works equally well in a season with long-range warfare. Right, and what does this do? It gives your legion and other nearby friendly legions, friendly archer legions, a physical attack and a normal attack buff. That's good. What does the Exemplar do? Well, it increases the duration of both that physical keen and that normal attack buff. Alright, you make a good artifact better. So Heart of Kamasi, I think this clings to the B tier. Dragon Scale Armor, this is sort of like your Madeline, Garwood, Madeline Hosk type of artifact. It gives your legion a shield. It also gives your legion and nearby friendly legions an attack buff for a period of time. So what does the Exemplar do? Well, it extends the shield not only to your legion, but also nearby friendly legions. This is one of those artifacts that, like, I'm sitting here thinking, and like, my spidey sense is going off, and I feel like there's some way that you're going to be able to use this in a broken manner to give nearby friendly legions a shield. Some sort of synergy I'm just not seeing yet. I feel like some mad genius out there is going to figure out a way to make this super strong, but for right now I'm just not that impressed. I have it on the C tier. So your Infernal Flame, this is really your Lily artifact. This makes your next 3 attacks do additional magic damage. That's nice. So what does the Exemplar do? It basically gives those 3 attacks a cleave. Not only will your normal attacks hit whatever legion you're targeting, they'll target another nearby enemy legion. Damage factor 300. Now 300 is not amazing, but remember it's 300 3 times, so a 900 damage factor. Now doing AoE damage with Lilia, that's 100% on plan for her. That's exactly what she wants to do. It's what she's doing with her skills. If you have her with Valen, that's what he's doing as well. You probably have her with the Sapphire, it's what the Sapphire is doing, etc. So everything on plan's nice. 900 damage factor. Okay, I mean, I'm happy to get this, but it's not amazing. This is another making a good artifact slightly better, but it's not really transformative to me. I have it in the B tier. Alright, your Storm Arrows. Your Storm Arrows see a lot of use, but not really how the developers intended it. The Storm Arrows, they're a Cav artifact. Do Cav use this? Oh, sure, sometimes. If you're going on a raiding mission or whatever, and you gotta jump over some rivers or a mountain or something, you use the Storm Arrows to help you do that. But what do we really use Storm Arrows for these days? We really use the Storm Arrows for your infantry legions to blink into the enemy lines, to disrupt their range units, etc., to stop them from running away. Super strong for that. So what does the Exemplar do? Well, the Exemplar increases the range of Storm Arrows. Okay, I guess. And increases a buff to march speed. I don't really care about that for infantry. And like I said, Cav, okay, we get a little use out of Cav, but not a ton. This is like, okay, you'd rather have it than not have it, but you're not excited when you get this. I think this is clearly a C tier for me. Next, we got Mana Stone Hunter. Alright, Mana Stone Hunter, what does it do? Obviously, it creates a random Mana Stone. Every so often you get lucky. 9 times out of 10 you get wood gathering speed or something like that. So what does the Exemplar do? It has a chance to create an extra Mana Stone. Whoop-de-freaking do. When you pull this one, you feel dead inside. This is trash. No thank you. Okay, Greyars Warhammer. Maybe we were just sleeping on this one, but now we have the Exemplar and we've sort of figured it out. This does some diffuse damage to enemy legions in a circle. Okay, great, whatever. But the main thing is it stuns those legions. It's a complete stun. They can't do anything for the duration of the effect. Now, your base effect is 4 seconds. What does the Exemplar do? It increases the radius of the stun, right? And also increases the stun duration from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. That's a 50% increase. That's super powerful on an AoE crowd control. Awesome. Now, this is an infantry artifact, and you can certainly use it with infantry, but it's not limited to that. I think Cav are going to use this artifact all the time. I think this is super strong. I think it's the best Exemplar in the game right now. To me, it's clearly on the S tier. And we go to that to Lucios Horn. Hey, remember Season 1 when you were super excited to get Lucios Horn? Right, you level that thing up, it can produce level 7 nodes, that's awesome. Hey, guess what? Now even in Home Kingdom, you got higher level nodes than that. And certainly you have much higher nodes in all the, your KVK areas. This is something they really need to update because it's kind of freaking useless now. Alright, what does the Exemplar do? Well, the Exemplar increases your gathering speed for the corresponding resource you spawned. So what's the best possible case scenario for this, right? You're in your KVK, you're in your Home Kingdom or whatever. You're about to put your Legion into the resource node. You have Lucios Horn out, you spawn the node, hopefully you hit mana. Not that you can go into the mana node you spawned, but you can send it into your Alliance Resource Center and get some additional mana gathering speed for the duration. Wow. This is trash. But as much as I hate Lucios Horn, there's an artifact I hate more, and that's Karatas Wrath. So what does this do? Obviously increases your peacekeeping damage. It's got one niche use. It's pretty good in the Breaking Through event, my least favorite event in the game. What really is Karatas Wrath for these days? It's for turning into Exemplar tokens so you can pull one of these. And then you pull Karatas Wrath Exemplar. What does the Exemplar do? It increases the experience you gain when you're fighting Darklands. Oh my god, how useless is that, right? We've already talked about how only strong accounts are going to get Exemplars to begin with. Do you need more experience on your strong account? I have more experience books than I'll ever freaking use. I do not need experience. This thing is complete trash. It's my most hated artifact in the game. It's the trash tier and the bottom of trash tier. Okay, now we get the Shield of Sturdiness, right? This is the fun artifact you can push people around with. Right, what is the Exemplar effect? The Exemplar effect inflicts infirm upon damaged legions. If you don't remember what that is, that's the Indis debuff. It makes effective legions take 20% more damage for a few seconds. I mean, that's strong, but like, that's not kind of really how you're using the shield. So the Exemplar effect, it's kind of mediocre to me. Now what is good about this is just getting the shield itself makes the shield stronger. And this is your other meta Rally Garrison artifact, and it probably sees as much, if not more, use than the Torque these days. And so if you're a Rally Garrison lead, you need this, not for the Exemplar effect, but just for the passive buffs you get from getting an Exemplar. So for that reason and that reason alone, it stays on the A tier, because if you are that Rally Garrison lead, you need it. Okay, next we got the Oath of Stormpeak. Now this is the artifact that gives you a clone. The clone fights for a little while, and the clone, one of the downsides of the clone, or one of the vulnerabilities of the clone, is the clone legion takes extra damage. Okay, what does the Exemplar do? It does two things. First, the clone takes extra damage vulnerability. It mitigates that. The amount of extra damage the clone take is lessened by the Exemplar. Honestly, that's not a big deal. But the other fact, it extends the length of the clone by 2 seconds, right? At base, the clone lasts 10 seconds. Now it lasts 12 seconds, a 20% increase. Okay, this is pretty strong for a couple of reasons. First, if you're fighting with this normally, an extra 2 seconds means your clone can probably get off a second rage cycle, which is very strong. The second reason that this is very strong is for the clone strategy, and the clone strategy is where you charge this artifact up just behind the front lines. You don't fight the enemy but then you spawn the clone and send your clone in to fight the enemy. That extra 2 seconds can make a big deal. So this can be used to great effect, and the Exemplar is one of the things that really makes it viable. For that reason, I think the Oath of Stormpeak is an A-tier artifact, and I have it near the top of the A-tier behind everything except for perhaps the Thunder Elegy. Our last artifact is the Breath of Jarantis. So what does the Breath of Jarantis do? So it does an AoE defense break and hits up to 10 targets. The defense break's pretty substantial and it lasts a long time. What does the Exemplar effect do? Well, it increases the area of effect of the defense break. It was already pretty good, now it's even stronger. It also increases the defense break duration. Both things are great. It still does no damage, and here's really the problem, right? The Thunder Elegy has really crowded out Breath of Jarantis at this point. And so this is one of these artifacts that, like, I have it, I feel it should be good, I just can't fit it into my lineup, and the Thunder Elegy does most of what it does anyways. So I think the Breath of Jarantis, I actually have it on the C tier. Alright, and that's where I have the Exemplars at right now. Now, the Exemplar system's still fairly new. I don't have all these Exemplars, I have a good bit of them, but there's still some I'm collecting. And as time goes on, as people figure out new ways to use these, I expect these rankings to change. And hey, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, you stay classy, Bell Run.